When I was in my late teens, my mother and I were really poor. We didn't have so minor conveniences like air conditioning or a home phone. Cell phones at the time were just gaining popularity in my area. Now, there was a payphone about a half a mile down the street on a busy country highway. I would regularly pick up cans on that highway to make money to obsessively use that payphone. I was a teenager talking to boys, and my friends were the most important thing in my life. One Saturday, I was waiting for my awesome friend to come pick me up, and as such, I ran down to the phone to call her over until she showed up. There were two payphones side by side. These two guys pull up in a really fancy Eddie Bauer model SUV and fiddle with the phone, then very obviously pull out a cell phone and make a quick call. You could stay on the phone for about 15 minutes for one quarter. My call ended and my friend said that she'd call me back. The guys were still there. They started to tell me that they were going to the lake and that a few folks were going down there. They asked me if I wanted to join them. I told them no and explained that I was waiting for a friend. And then they asked me if I smoked. I said something cute, I'm sure. They asked me if I'd come along with them for $20. I declined. The number then rose to $50. Every time I said no. The amount went up to about $500. At this point I was really creeped out, but trying to stall so my friend would call me back. I didn't want to walk home, but after a few minutes, I didn't want to be there anymore. I started to turn to walk home and then get in the car. They followed me the whole way to my house, begging me to come to the party with them. I ran across the highway and up my driveway and hoped that they wouldn't follow me up. They didn't. A week or so later, there was a story about a girl my age that was assaulted by two assailants in my area. While there was no confirmation that it was the same two guys, my town wasn't particularly large, and I had my suspicions.
So I'm really freaked out right now. A little background. I'm in my late 30s. I live in a home with my brother, who works in personal security, and my fiance. I always feel really safe because my brother is home at nights and he is armed to the teeth. And we have a pit bull who is very protective of us. So my brother recently took a temporarily high clearance security job in Arizona. So he was being put up there in a hotel out there. Before he left, he showed my fiance Rod and I how to operate one of his guns just in case. We live in one of the safest towns in America. Nothing bad hardly happens. It's like Mayberry. But with all this recent clown bullshit and the increase of drugs, it's better to be safe than sorry. So this happened 2 nights ago. My fiance goes to bed early because he has to be up at 5 o'clock most mornings for work. So we're in bed, me and him and the dog. I have my headphones on and I'm watching something on my tablet. Just for FYI, I snore bad, so my poor fiance wears earplugs. Around 11:30, my dog jolts out of sound sleep and starts growling. She goes over to our window in our bedroom and starts growling louder. So I get up to check. I look outside and there's a man staring at me. He's skinny, old, grizzly gray hair, vacant eyes. He looks at me and smiles. I'm about to lose it. Now my dog is straight up foaming at the mouth and barking. This finally wakes up my fiance and he goes over to see what's going on. The man sees that I'm not alone and takes off. We call the cops and they show up and they start looking around. They find the guy's backpack. He has a notebook with my name, my address, and a diagram of my freaking house. They find beef jerky, sleeping pills, I guess for my dog, scissors, twine, electric tape, condoms, and a rusty knife. They told me that they will be on the lookout for him. but I'm really freaked out. So old guy, let's never meet again. Update on man in the window. They caught him. Not before he tried it again though. Today I was home alone. My fiance was working. My dog was in my room. I had all the doors locked, including the bedroom door. I drifted off for a nap when I heard someone banging on the window. My dog's going crazy. I didn't hesitate. I called 911. The officer comes right over. Operator tells me the officer caught him running out of my gate. So I hang on the phone with her. They catch him, I guess, trying to get into his car. Turns out the dude was someone I worked with years ago. He had been in my house 10 years prior during a work barbecue I hosted. He swore to the officers he did not mean any harm, but I beg to differ. But this explains how he knew the outline of my home. Also, 10 years ago, I had another dog. She was a lab mix, and not the world's greatest guard dog. I'm guessing he maybe thought I still had her. She passed 5 years ago. Anyways, he's in jail. Supposedly, he's got tons of warrants for breaking and entering from Oregon. So cops said he's probably heading back there.
This was about 9 or 10 years ago, when The Nightmare Before Christmas in 3D came out in theaters. I was about 12 at the time, and I was one of those kids who was obsessed with the movie. I had to explain to my parents why it was so necessary that I see the movie in 3D. So we decided to go out to Dublin, a city my dad worked at, that was about a half hour away from where I lived, and go visit my dad's workplace, then go for lunch and the movie. Now, since I was an edgy preteen, I explained to my parents that I needed to sit by myself. They compromised and said that they would sit in a row behind me so they can at least keep an eye on me. The theater made us go through what seemed like an hour of previews before the actual movie started. But that was okay, because halfway into the previews, I needed to go to the bathroom. I turned around to tell my mom, and she offered to go with me. I got mad and said I could go by myself. Then she pulled my cell phone out from her purse. This was about the time of flip phones, and I never really cared to have a cell phone, so I always left it laying around. And she told me if anything happens to call her. I rolled my eyes like any preteen, and said okay and left for the bathroom. While walking to the bathroom, I feel the presence of this guy walking behind me. He was walking uncomfortably close. I could hear him breathing out of his mouth. I get to the bathroom and open the door in surprise. The bathroom was filled with other women and girls. I turned around to see that guy had sat in the bench and started staring at the floor. He was tall and lanky, with long greasy blonde hair. I turned back and went into the bathroom. There was a line in the bathroom, so I spent a good 5 minutes waiting to actually go. Finally, my turn came to go. Afterwards, I washed my hands, and my mom called me asking me if I was okay. I explained to her the long line, and I'll be back soon, and I hung up. I got out of the bathroom, and the guy was still sitting on the bench. As I walked past him, he got up and started to walk behind me again. I had my phone gripped in my hand. And I know what you're thinking, but no. I wasn't planning on calling my mom. I thought I was a badass, and I was planning on actually throwing the phone at him, and then proceeding to kick his ass. My dad had spent most of my childhood teaching me how to fight and defend myself in case something like this happens. I got into the theater and sat back in my seat, and the guy sat in the same row, a few seats down. The movie had finally started, and I couldn't even enjoy it because of the cold stare coming from this guy. The theater was somewhat empty, so this guy could have sat wherever he wanted, but he chose to sit by me. About 15 minutes into the movie, I noticed him shifting one seat closer. I looked back at my parents to see if they noticed, but instead they're enjoying the movie, so I started to think, If this guy moves one seat closer, I'll start a scene. I must have zoned out in the movie because a little further in, and that guy is now 2 seats away from me. He's leaning in, and the arm is resting on the seat next to him, as if he's ready to grab me. Without taking my eyes off the screen, I thought, this is it. I'm gonna knock this guy out. When I hear my dad yell, "Get the fuck away from my daughter before I break your neck!" My mom threatens to call the cops. I look and see this guy starts to run out, but really wanting to go out with the promise that I made to myself. I threw my phone at him, and I missed and hit the wall. The movie stops and the light turns on. The manager rushes in and asks what's going on. My dad tells him that he saw some guy trying to reach over and grab me. The manager calls the cops, and I give them my statement. The entire ride home was a lecture from my parents about being careful when you're alone in public, and I just sat in the back seat of the car, beating myself up about my poor aim. That being said, creepy movie theater guy, let's not meet again.